So episode 4 of the Purge 10 episode TV special event has dropped, and today we're going to talk about it. Hey YouTubers, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell over by the subscriber button to notify you every single time I upload. Enjoy the video. Before I actually get into any of this, I wanted to kind of take a moment. Last week, I got a little flack from some people listening to this review session and talking about like, oh, you're not actually reviewing, you're just talking about the show. Well, I'm pretty much, not in every single video, I completely attest to that, but I pretty much talk about this in every video, that my reviews aren't just simply, oh, like, this is what happened, and this is what happened, and this was what happened. Those are really boring to me. I like to talk about what I liked, what I disliked, and just general theories about how the episode is going to play out. If you want someone who's going to give you a play-by-play breakdown of everything that happened so you don't have to watch it, that's totally fine. I don't consider that a review, but you know, it is to what it is, to each his own. Anyway, let's get right into this. Instead of talking about this as it happened, I'm going to be talking about each individual character and how I thought their story is progressing, what's going on in their life, and where I think it's actually going in the series. So with that being said, let's start at Jane's character. I have to say the beginning of this episode was probably the best part of this entire series thus far. Really getting to see the breakdown of Allison purging Mark and then realizing exactly what she's done and break down with everything that they have told her. You know, she even says, oh my gosh, they said I would feel better. I've been so pent up. This is about my career. I did this for myself. I did this to advance myself, and it wasn't just for simple pleasure. But she just can't live with what she's done, and she's kind of just in disarray about it. But at the same time, because she did it for such a selfish reason, she just really is still pushing that narrative, you know, like, I did it for this, and obviously I got the job, right? And that's one of the best things about this episode. If anything, it's going to be one of the best things about the entire series thus far, because I wasn't expecting it. I'm pretty sure most people who are watching this right now or who are watching that just plain weren't expecting that. And then how that kind of parlayed into Jane's realization that she doesn't want to go through with this whole Uber, hit on people with the purge night that she's been doing. I mean, I don't really have a name for it, but you know what I'm talking about if you've been watching the show. Look, that was great. I wasn't really expecting the whole Allison purges Mark thing. They didn't really set that up, and I feel like even though they pulled off the scene, it came out of nowhere just simply for shock value. But what it led to, at least in that moment, was probably one of the best things that this show has done and probably will do by the end of its run. And if I had to say why anything, this is probably one of the reasons this is the best episode of this season thus far, and I'm really wondering if they're going to be able to top it. They're going to be able to top that emotional weight that they put on in this episode, and not only with Jane's character, but also people like Jenna and Rick and Lyla and everything going on in the NFA party. So before I get into that though, let's finish up Jane's story arc. Like I said, this all is just happening at the exact same time. So we want to take in turn and actually understand everything, you know? So with all of this going on, Jane decides to call off her hit, but she can't get a hold of anyone. So she just decides to leave the office. When she's leaving, she calls the hospital to talk to her mom to say, first and foremost, that she is sorry for something that we're not really privy to right now. And this makes me think that we're going to be holding on to Jane's character for a lot longer because she is really a character that we don't have a whole lot of story background for almost anybody. We know way more after this episode of Jenna, Rick, and almost everyone else, even Miguel and Penelope, and how their lives have revolved around the purge. But Jane is still somewhat of a huge mystery to us in what she's been going through over the last couple of years. So she goes out of the place. She almost gets raped by the guy in the thumbnail, the guy who has like eyes painted all over his face, so no one really gets to see him. And then she's rescued by this group of women who go out and actually save women on Purge Night. And the most interesting thing about that storyline, and really that's all there is to talk about with Jane's character, the most interesting thing about the women who save her though is the fact that they break down, even though it's kind of an expositional dump, because the show or this franchise itself cannot be bothered remotely to even deal with anything other than just like cool death things or people fixated on murder. I mean, that's why that beginning part was so realistic and so awesome, is because that's how a normal person would react. But just so happens that almost everybody in the Purge universe is just like a murderous maniac who doesn't care about killing people, or we don't actually get to see the residual impact that has on them. It's kind of weird that this is the first time we're seeing it in 4 movies and 4 episodes of a television series, but here we go. So anyway, their whole exposition dump of during Purge night, it's all not just all about murder and mischief and mayhem. It's really women get just abused sexually, physically, and just all around. And the fact that crime and all this other stuff has dropped year round, it puts everyone in this kind of sleeping state, or like a dream-like state where they don't really understand the build up or everything that's going on. And that to me is fantastic. That to me is what the Purge should be focusing on. But because it's not really something that sells, it's not something that they can do on television or even in movies, they can't expand upon that idea, then it's just regulated to talking about it in these like, okay, yes, this happens, but it's just something we kind of deal with and we move on, and then we get to the Carnival of Flesh, and that will get me to the Miguel and Penelope story. As I've said in my other videos about this show, the whole Miguel and Penelope story is the worst thing about this entire series. It's not the fact that they're bad characters, it's the idea that James DeMonaco likes to put in all of these awesome ideas. That fun run that he did a couple of episodes ago, and now this Carnival of Flesh, everything about this story is stuff that makes me believe that James DeMonaco wanted to put this in movies. There wasn't enough time for it, there wasn't the budget for it or anything else like that, so he's kind of saved it for this story, and now he's trying to shove everything in there. And that's why Penelope just keeps being taken from one location to another. As it seems in episode 5, that's what we're going to get. She's going to be in a different location. Even if it's in the same area, we're not going to have Miguel and Penelope reunite until probably the end of episode 5, but probably more so after that. I mean, I would really believe that she's going to be just thrown around to different, more fantastical situations for the entire season, at least up until episode 8, which is, spoiler warning for anyone who hasn't looked up on IMDb, but that's where a lot of people are said to kind of drop off in this show. Whether that means their story ends or they get killed off, we're not really sure right now, but I'm holding hope and crossing my fingers that some of my favorite characters won't actually end up dying. If you wanted my personal opinion, and I would say this for last, but this masked man who keeps going around and trying to find people and obviously is trying to help people, but kind of upset that at the end of the episode, the person he's looking for has actually been killed in the grocery store. I think that Miguel and Penelope are going to cross paths with him, and either that's going to be their final thing to deal with, or he's going to help them out of whatever thing they get themselves into. And for whatever reason, character-wise or whatever, he's on their list, or his list. And I'm not sure. That's just my thought and speculation there. I'm not really sure what they're doing with that, and I don't even really think I like it at this point, because they're really just saving it for the very last thing in every single episode. That's not enough story for this guy to really get involved with. So let's leave that at that, and hopefully they expand upon it a little bit more next week. Miguel, Penelope, to me, just not really interesting. The whole carnival thing is really kind of cool, but because it's a television show, because they're lacking in almost everything in terms of budget, it just doesn't feel as big as they want it to feel, and it kind of comes off a little bit more cartoonish than anything else. So that's not my favorite part of the story, and I really hope that they find a way to make it interesting sometime soon. Probably just having them be put together would make it way more interesting than what they're doing right now, but I understand why they're not. Moving on to Jenna, Rick, and Lyla. Most interesting thing happening right now has been the most interesting thing happening for this entire series since episode 1. The whole NFFA party is probably one of the more interesting things to explore on Purge Night, and I'm really glad that they've decided to try and really explore it and understand who these characters are and really dive into them. So one of the things this episode did was it kind of expanded on that kiss last week and the whole "I'm pregnant" line from Jenna to Lyla about Rick's child and where their marriage is at this point. They were painting this happy-go-lucky family, but it became very clear from the onset that these two have some residual problems that haven't been worked out. And obviously with the first flashbacks that we saw with Jenna, Lyla, and Rick actually making love, the idea that they're having a threesome and there's just this history between the three, it was kind of clear with the kiss last week that we were going to be getting Jenna and Lyla actually in more of a romantic relationship than Lyla and Rick, as a lot of people might have anticipated going into this entire season. And I think that's awesome. I think that they've done a really good job to expand that relationship in the very small amount of time that they've done it. And it's going to be really interesting to see where she goes from here, as just the majority of the episode plays back with their story in the flashbacks, and Lyla is telling Jenna that Rick will actually end up joining the NFFA, and for whatever reason she understands or realizes that this guy is way more inclined to do this than she is. Whether or not we're going to be seeing any flashbacks that actually show us why she believes that, or whether or not she's actually just playing Jenna because she is in an NFFA mindset and she's just trying to get Jenna into that mindset too, because she either has feelings for her or she has feelings for Rick, or whatever might actually happen, we don't know. I think it's just an interesting situation to actually focus this episode with Jan's character, Jenna, Rick, and Lyla on a way more humanized, centric story than any Purge movie or any Purge story really has ever done. And that is why this is my favorite episode of this season. I know right now I'm kind of rambling, but to me, this is one of the reasons why I actually wanted to have this show in the first place. This is one of the reasons I actually am excited to watch it every single week. I don't want the murderous mayhem stuff. I don't care that it's on USSA or Sci-Fi for whoever's watching it and it's actually on Sci-Fi. I don't care about any of that, because without the human side, without understanding who these characters are, then anything that happens in the movies really doesn't matter. And that's probably one of the reasons I actually like the first one more than a lot of other people, but you know, that's a discussion for another day. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. Like I said, it's just talking about the episode. I hope everyone has ideas of where they want it to go. I still like the idea of Jenna and Lyla just kind of shotgunning their way out of this party. And you know, as a side note, you know, the thing I really love about this party is they have these characters playing, you know, actors, background people playing the NFFA members in their nice suits and dresses, and they've really just covered up their faces. And if you pay attention to the stuff happening in the background, they are just the most distracting people in the freaking world. If you've noticed this, then please comment that, because I just chuckle every time I decide to look into the background in these episodes and I realize that these people are doing their best to make sure that their faces are seen, despite the fact that their characters have literally been introduced to wearing these masks or having these masks up to their face. So they take every opportunity to either take off the mask or make their faces known, and I think that's really freaking funny. I mean, all power to them. I mean, I would want my face to be seen too on a nationally wide television event series like this. And also with the idea that this is a television event, that is actually the coolest thing about this. I think USA has gone a long way to actually make this feel pretty genuine, with every single commercial break having all these little factoids about what the Purge universe is actually like. So we get to learn a little bit more, and it gives us some incentive to watch at least the first commercial break. And then also coming back with these, you know, on set, we're seeing all this be placed out, the first table reading and everything else like that. That's really cool too. It makes me feel like I'm actually being a part in watching something, unlike a lot of other television shows that I watch. So guys, what are your thoughts on this new episode of The Purge? Do you like the show in general? Do you want to see more of it? I hope everyone is having a fantastic day. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell over by the subscriber button to notify you every single time I upload. It's been real.